Okay, in case you missed it, I recently pivoted my business again. This is now my third business pivot in 4 years, but I'm finally in a place that feels right. I finally feel like I'm doing what lights me up and what gets me genuinely excited. And for me, that's launching. Or more specifically, launch strategy and launch planning and, marketing of a launch. I'm still in the process of changing all of the messaging on my website and social media and all of the places. And in fact, I've actually got a new website coming soon next year. So stay tuned for that launch, the launch of my new website and my new branding. But okay, so how I now work with clients is either through mentoring via Voxer voice message. So if they're going through a launch, they have unlimited access to me and my advice via voice message. And I also work with clients to develop a launch strategy. So this involves planning your entire launch from start to finish, including how you'll communicate it, who you're launching to, your entire promo calendar leading up to the launch, how you'll actually launch it, etc., etc. The nitty-gritty of your launch, right? But I'm also developing a library of DIY launch plans. So last month, I launched my A to Z podcast launch plan. And after the success of that one, I've realized that people really like the simple step-by-step approach. So I'm going to create some more launch plans soon and launch those. And next year, I plan on relaunching my membership. So stay tuned for that one too. But okay, this episode, I'm sharing some of the reasons behind why I chose to pivot my business again. The first reason was that the generalist marketing space just felt way too competitive and cluttered. I was essentially a generalist marketer, okay? So I didn't specialize in any one thing, which meant that I didn't stand out as the go-to person for any one particular thing. And that made it really difficult to compete, especially now that the marketing space is just becoming so saturated. There's no barrier to anyone becoming a social media marketer, a Facebook ads manager. There's no formal qualification that they have to do. There's no body they have to be registered with. And that's a great thing because it opens it up to everyone, but that's also a bad thing because anyone can become that person, right? So it was just becoming increasingly saturated, and I really started to resent the space. I had so many copycats rip off my content, my website, my business name even. Do a quick search on Instagram now for the name Wild Bloom and see how many businesses exist with that name now. When I first started Wild Bloom, there were two, and they were both florists. So they weren't even related. Now there are so many Wild Blooms in the marketing space, and not even just Wild Bloom, but similar to Wild Bloom. The competitiveness of all of this copycat stuff and the whole space in general just didn't sit right with me anymore. And I didn't want to feel like I had to keep up with my competitors anymore. So that was a big reason why I chose to pivot. Another reason why I chose to pivot was I wanted to become known for something. I wanted to be the go-to person for something. Because, once you're the go-to person, people don't haggle your prices. You become the authority. And that's what I was missing by being the generalist. I knew that if I wanted to stand out and not have to compete in the saturated market, I needed to become the go-to person for something. But it took me a while to figure out what this thing was because I knew a little about a lot of different things, right? And it wasn't until I sat down with Prue Chapman for a strategy session at the end of last year, at the end of 2018. And I said to her, Prue, I want to launch this course and this and this and this, but I feel like I'm not known for one particular thing. And she was like, well, if you love launching so much, then that's obviously your thing. And it was such a light bulb moment for me. It was such an obvious thing, but I hadn't even considered it. And it took me a whole year to make this pivot. And I will talk about why it took me so long to make a pivot soon, but basically I was afraid. I knew that there were a few launch experts around because I'd been following them for years and I'd been learning from them, but I knew that nobody had the same approach to launching as me, and I knew that nobody had the same teaching style. And that is that launching should be simple and fun, and my teaching style is very no fluff, straight to the point, as you, my podcast listeners, will know. The third reason I chose to pivot was that I got sick of talking about Instagram and Facebook ads. I really didn't enjoy keeping up with all of the changes all of the time. And I actually felt drained every time I went to read up on anything that was related to Facebook or Instagram. It just didn't light me up anymore. And every time anyone asked me a question about Instagram or Facebook ads, I almost didn't want to answer it. This is a big part of the reason why I haven't been totally consistent with the podcast this year. And that is because I haven't known what content to record. I know that my episodes about Instagram will 100% outperform any other episode. They get way more downloads, way more listens. And who doesn't want that, right? But the thing is, I hated talking about it. So I was stuck in this limbo between, do I want lots of people listening to my podcast or do I want to talk about what lights me up? So now I'm talking about what actually lights me up. The fourth reason I chose to pivot was I realized just how much launching can impact someone's business and how people don't know enough about it. It's so important. It's such an important thing in business and it's relevant to everyone, but people don't pay enough attention to it. They spend so much time learning how to get more followers on Instagram, but they don't learn about how to do a launch. And I spoke a bit about this in the episode on unexpected ways that launching can impact your business, but it's actually amazing how much of an impact a launch can have. Launching is almost a marketing tool in itself, right? I think about times when I've had a massive spike in email subscribers or in Instagram followers, and it's almost always been during a launch. Launching is also a great way to build your authority, to get a really good insight into your audience, and to have a bigger impact with your business. Oh, and it can bring in a big chunk of cash, which I know it's really icky to talk about money. I don't feel comfortable talking about it either, but cash is so important in your business. Most small businesses fail because they run out of cash. So to be able to bring in a big chunk of cash, that means that you can suddenly invest in things in your business that you wouldn't normally have the cash to do so. Now, the membership that I'm launching next year will be based around the idea of launching being a marketing tool. So the idea as it stands, and this could change between now and when I launch it, but at the moment the idea is that I will take members only once a quarter. New members can only join once a quarter, and then for that whole quarter, we're launching together as a community. The focus is on launching one thing. Now, that one thing might be a course, it might be a membership, a product, a service. You get my drift, right? It could be anything. And then by following that process in launching this one thing, you're also, as a side effect, going to grow your audience, your authority, your impact, and your sales, because that is the amazing side effect that happens as a result of launching. I know that launching is scary, so that's why I thought, okay, let's make this a membership rather than a course, because if we're all launching at the same time, then everyone can support each other through that. And because launching is something you should be doing multiple times a year, I feel like an online course where you just go through it once is not sufficient to get those results, to get that impact and to grow that authority, okay? Anyway, so that's going to be happening next year and I will keep you updated on the whole process of that. The fifth reason I chose to pivot was that I realized how many amazing ideas weren't being brought to life simply because people were afraid to launch them or they didn't know how to launch them, right? And this makes me really sad because how many people are out there in the world hating their day job with amazing ideas in their head, but no idea how to bring these ideas to life? My big vision for my business is to give everyone the tools and the resources they need to bring these amazing ideas to life, because it's people with ideas who change the world, right? Okay, so that's it for this episode. Remember to head to stephtaylor.co to download the roadmap. Remember to hit subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes released every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And if you have just 1 minute, I'd love a quick rating and a review in iTunes or Apple Podcasts. Thanks so much for listening. Catch you next time.